Alright guys, how's it going? So on this video we're going to talk about VLANs. I'm going to try to answer 3 questions. What is a VLAN? Why use a VLAN? And how to create a VLAN. So what is a VLAN? A VLAN is a virtual local area network, and what it means is that you can segment a network into smaller little segments, right? So you can set them into, you can segregate it pretty much. So you can have one network, which would be the, like this example, the 192.168.100.0 network, which is a /24. That would be the subnet right down here. And as you can see, they all follow that same rule, right? That network, that initial 3 octets are part the same as the network here. So 192.168.100.2, and the 2, the .3, the .4, and the .5, that's what identifies each computer. But the 3 other numbers is what identifies as the network. And if you don't know about network and subnet masks and all that, I suggest that you pause this video and go read about that and learn a little bit about that before you start doing this. So when you do a virtual local area network, you're going to be messing around with private IPs. And if you don't know about these, I suggest you write them down and learn them so that next time you see them, you can immediately identify them and be like, bam, that's a private IP right there. So that's what a VLAN is. You use them to segment networks, to say, okay, these computers are assigned to management, these computers are assigned to accounting, these computers are for users, and maybe you don't want them to be able to access certain things, right? So maybe you have a server and you want that server to be part of the management VLAN, so only the management PCs can access that management server. So you can segment it that way, but they will still all be within the same network, right? Under the same network IP, if you will. So for that, you'll need a switch, right? So you wanted all these PCs to be able to talk to each other, so you want to connect them to a PC. So let's go ahead and connect those. If the PCs that or if the devices that you're connecting are alike, for example, a router to a router, a switch to a switch, or a computer to a computer, then you would use a crossover cable. If they are, if they're different, if they're not similar, so for example, a PC to a switch, then you would use a straight through cable. So let's go ahead and connect this fast Ethernet 04, and we're going to connect it. We're going to start up here with fast Ethernet 01. And then we're going to say this one's going to go ahead onto fast Ethernet 02 or 0/2. Let's just connect the rest of them. Also, by the way, I'm using Packet Tracer, which you can get from Cisco. It's a really good program, and I suggest you download it if you don't have immediate access to switches and routers and whatnot. Okay, so right now that it's completing the connection, you can see that the green lights, these little green triangles or pyramids, indicate the connectivity, and this one already got connected. So we're just gonna wait for the other 3 to finish their connections. So when it comes to VLANs, the VLANs are not held by the computer. They're held by the switch itself. That's where they're stored. And to be more specific, they're actually stored in the port itself, right? The port itself is what says this, or like this port will only allow a certain type of VLAN to pass through. And that's what we're going to configure. So you configure the port itself, right? So let's see, on this one, the 192.168.100.2, we connected this to the fast Ethernet 0/1. That's where we connected that one to. So what we want to do right now, say you wanted to segregate this network, right? Because at the moment, these can all talk to each other. .2 can talk to .5, .5 can talk to .3, .3 can talk to .4, .4 can talk to .2. They can all talk to each other, and I'm just going to demonstrate that real quick. So if we go to command prompt here, I can say ping 192.168.100.5. And you can see that we're getting a reply from .5. So .2 right here is sending information to .5, and it's going to the switch, and then the switch is going to the fast Ethernet 0/1, and then it's it's spewing it out, if you will, out of the fast Ethernet 05, and then it's going on to this PC, right? So sorry, not 05, but 04, fast Ethernet 04. So it's coming in from fast Ethernet 0/1, and it's coming out of fast Ethernet 0/4 onto the computer with 192.168.100.5. So they can all talk to each other. But let's say that you start managing some stuff around and you say, hey, listen, these two PCs here are way too important, and they're being used by management, and they have salary, they have social security numbers, they have sensitive information, and these other two computers are being used by the general public or regular users or regular employees, right, that don't have some high level clearance, if you will. So we want to segregate this, right? So we're going to put these PCs over here to make it easier to manage visually. And we want to create a management VLAN, and then we want to create a user VLAN. So we're going to go ahead and say that this is going to be the management. So let's just call it MGT management, and this is going to be VLAN, let's say 100. And then we're going to create this one, which is going to be users, and this is going to be VLAN 200. Bam. So this side VLAN 200, this side VLAN 100. Cool. Sounds good. Perfect. But well, right now we can still ping at each other, right? So like I said, the VLANs are being held by the port itself. So on 192.168.100.2, it's being held on port, as you can see right below my cursor, is fast Ethernet 0/1. So let's go to that port. So we're going to that switch. We can go to enable. Right now we're in executive mode, and if we say enable, we get into privilege mode, and if we say configure terminal, we go into global config. You can also use abbreviations, so instead of having to type that whole thing, you can say conf t, and it will send you to the same spot. Or another thing that you can do is you can say conf and then press tab, and it will auto-complete the rest of it. You can press T and it will auto-complete the word terminal, if that makes you feel better, but conf t works just fine. Okay, so we're in global config. So now let's go into the interface. So int or tab, and it will show you interface. FA for fast Ethernet, or you can press tab to show you fast Ethernet. 01. So now we're in line config, meaning that you're being very specific about exactly what you want to config, which in this case would be the interface fast Ethernet 0/1. And what we want to do is that we want to make this interface a switch port. And you have two options. You can either make it a trunk or you can make it an axis. There's other examples, or there's other options here, but for the scope of this video, we're just going to talk about these two. And we want to make this mode, and we want to make it an axis. And we enter. So now another thing that we have to do, now that this is axis, we have to assign it a VLAN. So we have to create a VLAN. So let's exit out of here. And you could have done this, however, you could have created the VLAN first and then made the switch port an axis. You could have gone either way, but they both work. So let's make a VLAN. So you have to be in global config. So from this right here, where you see the hashtag switch, whatever the name of the device is, and then the hashtag, you have to go to conf t, which is configure terminal, and then after that you create the VLAN. So for example, on this one, we're going to create, what do we say? We are on 100.2, which is over here, so we want to create a VLAN 200. So once we're here, we say VLAN 200, and we can also give it a name, and we can say that this name is going to be management, so MGT. So the name of this VLAN 200 is going to be MGT. So we go, oh, we also want to create a second VLAN. So before we exit out of here, let's make the second VLAN since we're here. VLAN, and we're going to name this one 100 for the users, and we're going to name it users. There you go. So we get out of there, and we can double check to make sure that this actually worked out. And we can check that by saying show VLAN. Now, this default VLAN 1, all switches come up with this, and as soon as you connect any device to a switch, it immediately is going to be assigned VLAN 1. As you can see here, all the ports FA01, 02, 03, 04, all the way to 24, even the gigabit ports, they're all assigned to VLAN 1 by default. We can see down here that we've created the VLAN 100 and 200 with the name management and users, but there's no ports at all assigned to them. So let's go ahead and assign some ports. So if we go back to conf t for configure terminal, which is our global config, and we go to interface or int interface, fast Ethernet 0/1. Earlier, what we did is that we said switch port mode access. That's what we did earlier. But now we want to do, well, let's just do one more time just for good measure. So we press enter, and now it's in, or it has been, but just for good measure. So now we do switch port mode. We say access since it's already access. And now we have to tell it what VLAN we're going to allow for this port. What VLAN is this port going to allow through? So what we're going to do is that we're going to assign it the VLAN, what do we say, 100. So now on this specific port, the fast Ethernet 0/1 is only going to allow VLAN 100. And that's what access means. Access means that you can only allow one VLAN through there, not necessarily at a time, just period. If VLAN 200, 101, 99, if any VLAN besides the VLAN 100 tries to go through there, it's going to get denied. It's not going to be able to pass through. So right now, switch port access VLAN 100, that's what we're assigning to that port. So that's the only thing that's going to be able to pass through there. Bam. So there we have it. So now we're going to exit out of here, and we're going to go to the next interface. Interface fast Ethernet 0/2. And on this one, we're going to assign the switch port mode access and then we're going to assign the VLAN. For this access switch port, we're going to allow VLAN 200. Perfect. So now we can get out of here. And if you want to check to make sure that the configurations actually went through, you show run for show running config. And it will show you these ports right here. So you got fast Ethernet 1 and fast Ethernet 2, and they're one of them is allowing VLAN 100, and the other one's allowing VLAN 200. And it actually messed up here. Both of these were supposed to allow VLAN 100. So let's get back into really quick. So conf t interface fast Ethernet 02 switch port access VLAN I said 200, and the way that we're gonna get rid of this is all we have to do is type in the exact configuration that we press. So for example, something that you can do is if you want to get rid of this part, you can copy this, you can bring it over here, you can paste it just as I have it here, right? Is this exact same thing, and all you have to change or do is put the word no in front of it, and that's going to get rid of it. Think about this word no as a delete, if you will. So we press that, and there is no more of that, and we can do that by show run. So normally you have to exit out of this config line and config global in order for you to do this command show run. But if you put the word or the command do or word do in front of it, it will let you do it without you having to exit all the way through. So we show do, and we'll see here that fast Ethernet 2 no longer has switch port access VLAN 200. It just says switch port mode access. That's all it says. So now that we're back there, we don't have to do the whole global config and all that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, actually, instead of typing the whole thing, you can just press the up arrow and it will show you all the different commands that you've run before. So we want to do this one, but instead we want to change that 2 to a 1, and we want to take out that no on the back. Bam. So now it's in there, and we can do show or do show. Actually, we can get out of here. We'll just say end. And we say show run. And now we see that both ports are allowing VLAN 100 and they're both in access, meaning that they're only going to allow VLAN 100 to pass through them. So bam. So now these two right here, they're part of the I put VLAN 200. Let me just change this. This seems a lot easier. So this is VLAN 100. This is going to be VLAN 200. Hopefully it's not confusing. But yeah, so this is VLAN 200. This is VLAN 100. So if once I configure these, if this PC tries to speak to this PC, it's not going to work because this is VLAN 200 and this is VLAN 100. So now let me configure the other one. So we go to global config again, conf t for configure terminal. Interface, and something that we can do is that we can say range. So you know how I just previously configured one interface and then the other interface? We can do just say range, and then we can say FA0/3 and then a comma and then FA0/4, and now we're going to configure both of these interfaces at the same time. You should only do this if you want to configure the exact same thing for both interfaces. So you can do all 24 interfaces on a switch, but just know that they're all going to have the same configuration. So we go here, we go to switch port, we go to mode, we want to make it an axis, enter, and then we go switch port again, we say axis, and we want to allow VLAN, and since we switched it, so now this one's going to be VLAN 200. So now they're both going to be access mode and they're both going to only allow VLAN 200. So let's exit out of here. Let's show run. And we're going to see here that on port 3 and port 4, we're allowing VLAN 200 and they're both in access mode. And on the first two, VLAN or Fast Ethernet 0 and Fast Ethernet 01 and 02 are both 100. So now they're segregated. So this PC can't talk to this one or this one. This PC can talk to this one or this one, and vice versa. They can't talk to each other. Cool. So what does that mean? Like, what's the big deal about that? Again, these are management PCs, and maybe you don't want these regular users or regular employees to be able to access it because maybe there's social security numbers, maybe there's just very sensitive information that it's locked in those on these computers here. And to just go, a little bit farther out there, say that there was maybe a server, right? Maybe you have a server out here, and it holds some information that you wanna access. There's one server there, one server down here. I already had some servers. Get rid of that. And get rid of that as well. Okay, so we got server 1 here. We got server on this side. And let me just configure this right here and add a good IP, which could be that. Okay, so we have these two servers, and they're both still on the 192.168.100 network. If you remember from the beginning of this video, they're all still on this network. They're all part of this network still, but now they're segmented. Now this has one VLAN and this has one VLAN. So we've divided this network into two. We divided it into two. So say that maybe management, maybe the information is users' IDs and social security numbers and, reports and all that. Maybe it's not being held in the computer itself, but instead they're being held on the server here. Right? So what we want to do is that we want to make a connection to these servers so that these managing PCs can access all the information that these servers have. So what we have to do here now is we can either directly connect it to this server and then make this server part of the VLAN 200. We could do that, but like say this server is maybe in another building somewhere else far away, maybe it's another city or another country, who knows. Well, what you can do is like say it had to go through some routers, do all that, which we're not really going to get into because that's beyond the scope of this video. But say eventually once it traverses whatever amount of piece of land, how many miles or meters that it needs to traverse to, eventually it's going to get to another switch. And that's the important part. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to connect this to, let's say, this port, and then we're going to connect it to this port. This middle right here could be hundreds of miles, it could be meters, it could be, you know, it doesn't matter. There's probably going to be many routers in between all of, like, between these two. So just pretend that this went, you know, far. So once it gets to this point, the port that I just connected to, port Fast Ethernet 024, needs to know that a VLAN 200 is going to come in, and it needs to know where to direct it to. So what we're going to do next is that we're going to configure this port, and we're going to give this switch the VLAN 200 that it needs to associate so that it can associate with these other PCs. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go to control on this new switch. We're going to go to enable. We're going to go to conf t, configure terminal. We're going to do interface Fast Ethernet 024. We're going to make this a switch port mode, but actually instead of making it an access mode, what I really want is I want the people or the management from this network or this VLAN and from this VLAN to be able to access, maybe let's say management can access this VLAN and the users can access not this VLAN, sorry, this server, and the users on this side to be able to access this server, right? What if I wanted to do that? Well, I would have to make this a trunk port because I'm going to have VLAN 200 passing through here, and I'm also going to have VLAN 100 passing through here. So I need to turn this into a trunk mode. And what it does is that it tags it. It uses 802.1q to tag each frame, packet, piece of information that passes through, and it tags it and it says, okay, this one goes to VLAN 200 and this one goes to VLAN 100. It's able to tag it. Access does not tag, so that's why it only allows one. And you know, it doesn't have that that managing capability, if you will. So let's get back in here again, and we go to config T, we go to switch port, and our options are access, dynamic, and trunk. We'll talk about dynamic in another video. So we're gonna do trunk, and now we're gonna do switch port again. We're gonna go to trunk, and then what we can do here is we say allow all. So you can either allow all of them. So if you go here, it says allow and native. Native is for backward compatibility. So we'll talk about that in another video as well. But for now, you can say allowed, and you can use also allowed all, where you would just allow all VLANs, or you, if you want to do that, just allow all VLANs, any kind of VLAN to pass through that trunk. You can completely skip this step. You can just leave it as. You could just leave it as this. Fast Ethernet 024, you can just leave it as switch port mode trunk. You could just leave it as this and you don't have to do anything else. And pretty much any VLAN, 100, 200, 50, 40, 99, whichever, they're all going to be able to pass through here. But if you want to be specific and you only want to allow, say, 2 VLANs to pass through, such as the 100 and the 200, then you have to be more specific. So we go to conf T, configure terminal, we go to interface, we go to Fast Ethernet 024, and then we say switch port, we say trunk, and we say allow VLAN, and we're going to say 100, and then we do this again. If you press the up arrow, it will show you all the different commands that you've run. And we're going to say add 200, because we've already added the 100. and then we're running the command again, but we deleted that little part where it said 100 and we just said add 200. So now if we exit here, we go to show run, and we look at that interface 24, we'll see that it's a switch port mode trunk, and it's a switch port trunk that allows VLAN 100 and 200. So now through here, VLAN 100 and VLAN 200 can pass through, which is great because we need that. And now another thing that we can do, or that we have to do, I mean, is that we need to connect these servers. So the server is going to have a straight through cable, and that's going to go to, let's say, Ethernet 01, and then this one's going to go to Ethernet 02. But we also have to configure those cables, because right now at this moment, by default, if we remember from earlier, these are part of VLAN 1. So these are only allowing VLAN 1 by default. So what we have to do is we have to show or tell this switch that there's a VLAN 200 and a VLAN 100 that exist. So we're going to come over here, and if we see show VLAN, we'll see that there's only that default VLAN 1, which has all the ports. So let's go ahead and create those VLANs. So we go to conf t, configure terminal, we say VLAN 100, we give it a name of VLAN 100 was management. So we go to, in 1 second here, we're gonna go to VLAN name, we'll say yeah, it was management, so MGT for management, and then we'll create the other VLAN 200, and this is creating the VLANs on the second switch so that they correlate. You want to have the same configuration on both switches so that they know. And on this VLAN 200, we're going to give it the name of users. Perfect. We can exit here, we can show VLAN, and we can see that they're there. Bam, 100 for management, 200 for users. Perfect, cool, awesome. So now what we need to do is that since we configured this port is on fast Ethernet 01, and then this one is on fast Ethernet 02. So for the 01, we say we want to have the VLAN 200. So we go in here, we say configure conf t interface fast Ethernet 01, and that's for the VLAN 200, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say switch port, we're gonna say access, we're gonna say VLAN, and we're gonna say 200. So now this will only allow VLAN 200. Remember, our goal was that we want only these computers to be able to access this. So that's why we're giving this the access VLAN, which would only allow one VLAN of 200. So if these computers try to access this server, they will still not be allowed. But they will be allowed to pass through this little this pathway so they can get to this server, which we're about to configure right now on fast Ethernet 02. So we go in there, and we go end, we go to config t interface fast 0, and what do we say, 2? I believe it was 2. Yes, 2. Now that we're in here, we're going to ahead and say switch port mode access, and switch port access VLAN 100. So now that port will only allow VLAN 100, and we can double check that by saying it here. Fast Ethernet 01 will allow 200, fast Ethernet 02 will allow 100 and 200 for the management. You can also add descriptions if you kind of start getting confused, which sometimes it does throw myself off. I also forgot to do the switch port mode on fast Ethernet 1, so let's do that real quick. So conf t interface fast 01 switch port mode access, and remember we can do show run so that we don't have to exit through here, and it will still give me so there it is, bam. So something that I was going to show you guys is that what you could do is that since we're in there already, you can do description, and you can say I think we're in the we are on Fast Ethernet 1, and Fast Ethernet 1 was for management, so description can be MGT, bam, and we can exit here just to back us up one back. And what we can do is we can say interface fast 02 description, and then this one could be users. And now when we exit and we go to show run, we can see descriptions. So we can say, hey, okay, cool, this is for the management and this one's for the users. And it's just, a lot easier. It kind of keeps reminding you of where you're at and exactly what you're dealing with and what you're configuring. So if I did everything correctly, these two PCs should be able to communicate with this server, and these two PCs should be able to communicate with this server, because this is part of the management VLAN 200, and this is part of the management VLAN 100. So let's go ahead and test this out. Fingers crossed. Go to command prompt. Let me just see. It was the 100.8. So from the .2, we're gonna ping the .8. Ping 192.168.100.8, and we're seeing some replies. Perfect. So for this PC and this server, I mean, they might as well be directly connected to each other. I mean, this server might as well be right next to each other. It does not matter. There is no difference, right? Except for your internet speed, I guess, right? Unless it's on the other side of the world, perhaps you'll see a little bit of a lag, but not really. Again, there could be hundreds of miles in separation. Here, the important part is just that it's gonna eventually go from one switch to another switch, and as long as both switches have the same configuration and they're within the same network, they're going to act as if they were part of the same local area network, hence the name virtual local area network, because it's virtual, right? So they're not necessarily local to each other, just virtually they are.